what we're going to do right now is, actually I'm going to get rid of this. I had a problem. My phone rang. I hit the wrong button and my computer crashed. So this is the third shot at this one. Alright, so we're going to create a new project. And we're going to call it database recording. Okay? Okay. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to take this form. We're going to rename the file frmmain.vb. We're going to rename the form as soon as the form comes up. And it's renamed frmmain, and we're going to put the text in here as main. And then we're going to set the isMDI container to true. Alright? Okay. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to put a menu strip on it. And our menu strip is going to have three options. We're going to display all records, or we're just going to say display records. Ampersand. And we're going to do display individual records, and then we're going to have an exit. And the E exit with the ampersand in front of the X is a Microsoft standard, which is why I use it. Okay, now before I can do anything else, I want to finish coding this main page, so I have to add my other forms. So I'm going to do an add a Windows form, and I'm going to call this frmdg for data grid. Okay, and then I'm going to add another form, and I'm going to call it frmsp for select product. Okay. Alright, so we're not worried about those right now. We just needed those on here so we could go ahead and create our stuff. So I'm going to double click, and you see what happens here? I get this display records tool strip menu item, which is just not what we want to have showing in our programs. So I delete that. I'm going to come back over here, and I'm going to rename my tool strip items with TSP all, TSP for tool strip, TSP IND for individual, and TSP exit. Okay, so now we'll come over here. Alright, and the first thing I'm going to do is create a dim frma as new frmdg. Okay, and then I'm going to set the MIDI parent for frma, and then I'm going to show frma. Okay, and then as usual, I can always come in here and I can find my tool strips, so I'll get my tool strip that way and click, and now I'll do dim frms as new frmsp, frms.mdi parent equals me frms.show. Okay, and the same thing for exit. Now exit, of course, is different. It's just, now one of the things we want to do here is we want to close everything. All right, and the MDI is the MDI parent. When it closes, all the other forms should close. So we're going to do me.close. All right. Okay, so that's all there is to main, and you've seen that 101 times and everything like that. Okay, so let's go back over to Data Grid View. Now, Data Grid View, the first thing I'm going to do on Data Grid View is I'm going to set my data source. Now, my data source window is over here. And obviously when I clicked on data sources, I can click Add New Data Source. Your data source window may very well be over here under Solutions, Explorer. All right, it just depends. I've moved mine. The basic way to add a data source is click Data and Add New Data Source. Now, we're using a database. We're setting up a data set model. We're going to make a new connection. We're using a Microsoft SQL Server database file. Now, the reason we're using the database file, the SQL Server database file, is because we're not going to connect directly to a database. We will talk about that next semester. And I'm going to browse, and I know I'm using Northwind, so just I'm going to open it. Right. Always, always, always test your connection. I don't care how many times you've used it, just test it. And it worked. Okay. Now, we're going to go to the next step. It says the connection you selected uses a local data file that is not in the current project. Would you like to copy the files to your project and modify the connection? In this class, you must click yes. I would not ordinarily tell you to do it because you wouldn't want to be copying that file all over the place. But if you don't do it in this class, I have issues when I go to grade them. All right, so the next thing you have to do then, and it will be here in a minute, is select the objects. Now, in this particular project, we're only going to work with products. So I'm going to click Products. And then I'm going to click Finish. Now, once it's finished, you'll notice that we have a data source, we have a data set right here, and products is in it. All I have to do to access my database is drag products over onto there. As soon as I do that, the data set is created for me down here. The binding source is created, the table adapter manager, and the binding navigator. Now, the binding navigator, and get rid of this for a minute, is this toolbar up here when I click on it. It is connected directly to the data set, and so anytime you want to do something there, and we'll look at it here just in a minute when we get this out. Let me get this all the way out here. Okay. All right. So here's my database. So I can run it right now. That's all I had to do the connection to the database. I can click Display Records, and there's all my records. And I can go to the last record. I can go to the first record. I can do whatever I choose to do coming down through here. All right. There is an issue with the add and delete buttons. They add the records to the data set, but we would have to add additional code in order to add it directly to the database table itself. I'm not going to get into that this semester. It's much more important that you learn how to do some other things before we worry about that. And notice that when I clicked exit, everything closed. Okay, we're going to come back to this form. But right now we're going to take a look at the other way to look at our data records. Now, I'm going to go to my data sources, and I'm going to expand products. Now, I can come to products, and I'm going to specifically click on product name, and I get a down arrow here. And so I'm going to go and I'm going to select a combo box. Notice that you can do all kinds of things here. I'm going to drag this combo box over onto here. Now, again, as soon as I drag the combo box over onto here, I get the binding navigator up here. Now, I don't really want the users to use the binding navigator, because what I want them to do is look at this form is for them to look up individual products and check their reorder, their units in stock, their units on order, and their reorder levels. And that's all this form is for. So I'm going to put units on stock in here. I'm going to put units on order, and I'm going to put reorder level. All right, now I want this all to line up. So I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do format align lefts, and then I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do format align rights. Never leave it the way I just had it. It's not cool. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set this up so that it uses data bound items. That means it will select its information, the products, from the database. Now, the data source is your binding source. The display member is your product name. And that's all I need for this particular form. Okay? All right. So that's all I need to do. Now I can run it. I can display individual records, and I can come in here and I can select Sir Rodney scones. And there are 3 in stock, 40 on order, and the reorder level is 5. And then I can go further down here and I can get, hang on, I'll find some, oh, okay, Boston crab meat. And there are 123 units in stock, none on order because the reorder level is 3. Again, very, very easy to get to the information you want to do. So, but what if we want information sorted or filtered? All right. So I'm going to come back over here. And the first thing, I'm coming back to my data grid because this is the easiest place to display this since we have all the records coming up here. All right. So I'm going to go to my Northwinds data set. And I'm going to right click it. And I'm going to click Edit and Designer View. Now, the first thing you need to notice is here's all our tables, and then here's all our fields, and then our table adapter. Notice that the table adapter already has one query that says fill. And if we look at that by looking at the configure, you'll see that it just selects everything. Okay? And that's all right. And then if you come over here and we go to the code, you'll notice that this says me.productstableadapter.fill. So what this is doing, when this loads, me.productstableadapter, it goes and finds the fill query. The fill query requires it to access all of the records in the order they're in. So it runs that query and it puts the results into this products. Well, since that's what the data grid is attached to, this works fine. All right? Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a query that sorts. So we're going to select statement. We're going to select which rows to return. And then we're going to go to the query builder. Query builder, as I said before, is very much like the access query information. But what I wanted to do this time is I wanted to sort in ascending order, and that's going to be our first field. And then I wanted to sort in ascending order and on product name. Now, what this is going to do is it's going to take all of category 1 and it's going to put it in order by alphabetical order by product. And that's a logical way to look at things. Okay, so I'm going to click OK. Right. I'm going to click Next. This gives us the opportunity to fill a data set or return a new data table. For what we're doing right here, we do not need to return a new data table, so I'm going to uncheck that. I never use this method name simply because it's a default name that's used way too often, but also it doesn't tell me anything. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say sort by product within cat. Sort by product within category. And actually I'll put product name within category ID. So I know exactly what it does. Yes, this is long, and I understand that. But if you get 15, think back to Access. Some of those things you had 15, 20, 30 queries. You have to know what the query does. If you want to know what it does without going in and looking at the builder or the SQL, you know, this is the only way you've got to do it. So we'll click Next, it tells it what it's doing, and then we'll click Finish. Now, you may want to take a break right now. We've created the filter. We've created all the forms. It's been 10 or 15 minutes since I started the lecture. Feel free to pause it right now. And then you can come back, get up, walk around, have a cigarette, have a cup of coffee, have a soda. Do not have a beer. And then come back to it. All right. We're back on again. Okay, then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a filter. And doing a filter is very simple. Again, it's a SQL statement. Again, it's a select statement. All right, and our query builder. Now, all I have to do now, do you see where it says filter? I'm going to click right here. And I'm going to filter it, and I'm going to use @cat ID. Now, all that means is this query has a parameter. So that when you call this query, you have to call the parameter. You have to give it the parameter. That's all that means. And you'll see how we use it here in just a minute. Now, also on here, let me go back to this query builder for a minute. Let's say I don't necessarily want the product ID to display. I don't need the supplier ID. I don't need to know whether it's been discontinued. I don't care. All right. And we'll click OK. And then we're going to click Finish. Okay. Yeah, it's telling you this is different, but that's okay. And I clicked Finished. And see what I got? I got the fill by. And that's not what I wanted. And that's okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do Configure. And then I'm going to click Next. All right. Again, I'm not returning a data table to work on. So, and this says Filter by Cat ID. All right. That's my name. Tells you exactly what it's doing. Okay. So now I have 3 queries. The original query that actually just gets everything, the filter by category ID, which is going to bring back only the category you choose, and then the sort by product name within category ID. Right, so we're going to use these off the data grid. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to click on the binding navigator, and I'm going to come down here and I'm going to do a button. Okay, and that button is going to say TSP prod within cat. All right. Now, you can add as many of these buttons as you want across here. All right. And then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to, my display state is going to be text. You could, no reason you couldn't leave it with image, but there's no way I could figure out how to create an image that would show product within category. That just defeats me. So I'm going to do sort by product product within category cat. Okay, and I don't type it all the way out because I don't want the whole thing to be screwed up. Okay, all right, so now there's that. All right, so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to double click it. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to do me.products table adapter dot sort by product name within cat ID. Do you understand now why I called it this? By calling it this, I know exactly which query I want. So then I'm going to put in me.northwinds dataset.products, because that's where I want it to put the information from this sort, this query. Okay? All right, save. All right, so we'll go ahead and we'll work. All right, so we're going to do display records. And we're going to click this button. And notice that now the category ID is sorted. And if I come down here, oh, guess what? Look, let me go back up one. The last item in category 1 is Steel Eye Stout, and the first one in category 2 is aniseed. So it's obviously it's sorted by category ID and it's sorted by product name within category ID. Works fine. Now, one of the things you're going to notice is the columns that I took out are back in. That's because this data grid was set up to handle these columns from the very beginning. When this loaded, it set up the data grid, and that's my fault. I forgot that that was going to do that. Okay, now we're going to take a look at that filter that we created, which it works the same way. The only difference is we want to have a value in there. So what first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select a combo box from this little binding navigator option right there. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do TSP. Sorry, my phone just rang. TSP filter by cat. All right, that's the name of it. Okay. Now, you need to go back to your code, but you don't need to double click it. That double clicking that takes you to a click event handler. That's not what you want. You want it to go to a selected index. I don't know why it does that, and maybe it won't do that on yours, but it certainly does it on mine. Okay, TSP filter by cat, and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to find the selected index changed. Okay? Alright, so now I have the right event there. So I only want the categories to show up. So since there's only 8 of them, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to put them in the properties. I forgot to do that before. So I'm going to come over here to items and I'm going to click on collection and I'm going to put the numbers through 8. Okay? Alright, so now I'll come back over here to the code, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to declare a variable cat ID is integer, and then I'm going to set the variable equal to this selected index. Actually, I could do it to the index or the item, but since I typed the correct numbers in, I think I'll just do it to the item. All right. Okay. Then I'm ready to display my data. Now notice this is all under the combo box. So it's me.products table adapter .filter. And notice here are our 2 parameters. One is a data table, and the other is the category ID. Now remember, we put the category ID in when we put the ampersand cat ID in the filter box. Right? And it has to have an ampersand on it. Otherwise, SQL does not recognize it as a parameter. All right. So we have me.northwinds.products, comma, int cat ID. Okay, and then we're going to save it. All right, now we're going to display the records, and we're going to, and then we're going to come here and we're going to go to 4. And there's record 4. Okay? Now, if you wanted to do this by product name or something along those lines, no, supplier, the easiest way to do this, let me put it this way, is by an ID. All right, that's just, let me say that. Okay? All right. Close and close. Okay, so we've covered pretty much, we've covered the queries, we've covered the filters, we've covered pretty much everything we needed to cover in databases. So I will see you either next week or in, let's say, 5 minutes in the Second Life. If you're in the Wednesday class, I'll see you in 5 minutes in the Second Life classroom. Later.